Hello there, this is another video accompanying the Joomla tutorial series developing an MVC component, and in this step we're looking at adding levels. Now levels are what you see whenever you see menu items and you look at the menu items. This is just the standard install data for Joomla, and you can see going down the tree here, coming back up again, and the same sort of things with categories. You have a tree sort of structure there, indented as you go down towards the leaf nodes here and then back up again. And what we're doing is we're implementing that for our Hello World records. Probably fewer sort of applications would use this sort of thing, but we have this step here just in case you want to do this on your own component. Now Joomla, whenever it implements these trees, it uses this nested set model from which this very good diagram here has been taken and put into the step. And the idea is that it uses left and right values to indicate where you are in the tree. And if you have a look through this and think about this here, you should be able to see how using these left and right values will enable you to find out what position you are in this overall tree. And here we've implemented it on our Hello World records, and I've just added a whole lot of records starting with new and putting those down various levels in the tree, as you can see, and then it's indented the further it goes down the tree. And the key API for this is our nested class, or JTable nested is the old name for it. And in the API here you see several of the APIs which we've actually used in our code in this tutorial step. For example, set location, store, delete, rebuild. We've used those, and those appear in here. Set location, there it is there. Rebuild. So anyway, what I'm proposing to do really is just take a bit of a walk through the code on the web page, just to make sure it's all understandable, I guess. The database install. Here are the 5 new fields that we're installing here. The parent, the ID of the parent in the tree, the 2 left and right values, the level in the tree, the top level, which is occupied by kind of like the root, is 0, and then it goes 1, 2, 3 below that, and this thing called a path, which is probably easier to see rather than explain, and you can see it here over in this column. And this is really just kind of like a list of the aliases as you go up through the tree. And if you are implementing this sort of structure on your component, you do need to have all of these fields present, because the library code which we use expects those all to be present. And then here we've just changed this to put in a few records in that tree structure. Now this obviously if we're installing from scratch. If we're doing an upgrade, we do that in 2 stages. So the first is to actually get the table fields correct, the columns, we add those. And then the next bit is the data, and setting the data or converting the existing records to have the tree sort of structure is a bit difficult to do in DDL here, if not impossible. So the basic thing is to write it into the install code, which, if you remember, we looked at in this, in adding an install uninstall update script file. And if we add it in the post-flight method, then the DDL changes will already have been made and these columns will be here for us. And what we're doing in the code is really just setting up initially a record which is the root of the tree, and then we're setting all of the other records as immediate children of that. So if we look at our structure here, here's our root record, which has got parent of 0, level of 0, and left is 0, and the right is the maximum value there. So it's kind of like this clothing record, only it starts with 0 instead of with 1. And if you look at other components such as menus or categories, you'll see the same sort of thing, in that there's a root record, and then the other categories and menu items are kind of built into the tree under that root record there. And you see the same sort of thing: parent ID 0, level 0, left 0, right at the very right hand side. So that's the install side of things. Now, our Hello World's MVC is associated with presenting this view, as you're probably well aware by now. So one of the changes which we have to do really to all our code is really take out our previous ordering field, which kind of gave the order of records. And what we're doing is we're replacing that with our left field. And if you look through kind of like how these menus and how these categories are displayed in this view, you're kind of going from the left hand side of the tree down to the maximum, then coming back up. And really what you're doing is you're traversing this from left to right. So a lot of our code changes for this step is really replacing the ordering field which we had in the previous step with LFT for left, and it's kind of setting up the default ordering there. And this is really just setting it up so that when you come in initially, it'll set it up by left and ascending, and we'll be able to pick that up in our layout code. Notice we're excluding the Hello World record, and the default ordering we're setting is left and ascending. Here's our view. Now this here is a little bit of code which creates a data structure which we use in our layout, and really what it's providing is it's setting up this property ordering, and it's really defining for each ID, it's getting an array of the children, the immediate children, and we're going to use that in our layout file. Here's our layout file. It's checking that the list order is left and ascending. So descending, which we had in the previous step, is no longer applicable, and really expects it to be in this sort of structure in order to display this icon here, allowing you to change the order. And here's our kind of link into our JavaScript, and here our P7, as it says, is true. And if we look at our JavaScript code, we can see where that comes in. Here's our sortable list, and we looked at this a fair bit in our ordering step, and here's our P7 here, nested list. And if you go down here, we looked at some of the things which happen when you start dragging and when you stop dragging. For example, when you start dragging, you disable other group sort. And here it's the code which gets executed if you're running a nested list. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But what we're setting up here is the key things are on the TR, the table record. Here is our little bit of code which creates this parents string here. And if we have a look in our code here with the developer tools, I'm going to pick one here, which is this one here. And I've highlighted it here. Now what we've got here is our item ID is 176. And you can see the item ID over at the right hand side of the page there. And then it's got this parent string. I'll just zoom in just down here. And what this is a list of the IDs as you go up through the table. So the immediate parent is 168. If we look at record 168, here's 168. Its parent is 114. And if we went up to 114, we would find its parent be 1. And the reason it does that is if we go back to our code, we see this thing called hide children nodes, and we pass in to that function the item that we're considering. So for this particular example here, the item ID that we're going to pass in is 176. And hide children nodes is a function which gets the children nodes and then hides them. So if we look at get children nodes, we find it down here. And really what it's saying is look for a TR where the parents attribute has got the ID that is passed in. And what it's then going to do is for the case where I have got this, I'm looking at this record 176, and what it's going to do is it's going to find all of the records which have 176 in their parent string. And if we go on to the next string, next one, you can see that it's there. And the next, you can see that it's there as well. So it means that when I start to, let's move this down a bit. When I start to move this one, these two here are going to disappear. And you can see that there. So it's really just a mechanism whereby you can get all the descendants of this record so that you can't sort among those, because really what you should only be doing is sorting amongst the siblings. The other thing that it's doing in the code, if we go back up, is it's hide same level children nodes, and it's passing in the level. And the level is also what we've got on our TR attributes. You can see it down here. And you're going down there, you're getting the same level nodes, i.e. the low nodes which have TR with the same level. And with those nodes, you're getting all of the children nodes and you're hiding them. So it does mean that whenever you're for example, moving this one here, then new 1b and new 1a, which are children of new 1, are also going to disappear. And you can see it there. Okay, and then obviously whenever you stop, you show those same ones there. Here you're just adding in the hide same children nodes. You're just adding a little bit of CSS, a class there. That class doesn't really do anything in terms of CSS. Really, all the reason it's there is whenever you come back to make those appear again, you can very quickly find them by looking for the ones with this class. There's no actual CSS associated with this class. So that's our sortable list. Our reordering code down here is the same. So whenever we do a reorder, as we did by dragging there a minute ago, we get the same sort of thing. We get a post here, which is an XHR, which is an AJAX call. And you can see it's going to task equals hello world.saveOrderAjax. Same as before. We look at the params. We've got the IDs that are involved, and if we go down, we get the order of those and how that has changed as a result of our dragging. And these are kind of like the orders of the ones which aren't changed. And that will again go through to our controller, and we will look for in our controller, if we go to our controller, hello worlds, it'll look for save order Ajax, which isn't going to be there, so it goes to our parent JController admin and controller, and if we look for that, there it is there. And basically what you're doing is you're getting the model, which in our case, our hello worlds, is going to be the hello world model. And then it's going to call save order. So it will then come into our code in our hello world model, which is further on down here. And we call get table, and we call the table save order, which is going to be one of these things here in our nested table method to update the order of table rows. Incidentally, you may actually be interested in looking at this problem report, because Joomla has changed subtly but significantly to fix this particular problem. I'll put this URL in the notes on the video. Okay, so that's our world's view. Here we're just using that little tree prefix, which gives us the indentation here. We're outputting the path and the other fields, as you can see here. These other columns plus the path just down there below the category, really for diagnostic purposes. That's basically it. The other admin stuff is on the Hello World edit form, which is obviously what we get whenever we click on something. And there's two new fields here. One is the parent, and the parent here, we can pretty much put it onto any record. parent it onto any record except records which are descendants of this record here or itself, because you're going to end up with a loop there. And we look at the two new fields. There's the parent ID, hello world ordering, and we just have to get the for the parent option, we just got to avoid those ones which are children or descendants. So if we look at this picture here, we can see that if we're looking at women's as a record, the descendants of that are going to be these ones here. And note that they have left values which are greater than 10 and right values which are less than 21. And if we want to exclude the record itself, we want this sort of condition here. And the second thing is the ordering. And notice for the ordering, we're really just allowing those records which have the same parent, because we're just allowing the ordering within that same level. So those should be fairly straightforward. There's kind of like a list of all of the operations and how they're processed. I'm not going to go through all these, but I'm going to go through one of them, and it's really just looking at the this one here. And what I'm going to do is I'll put the debug tools on and just set ordering. I'm going to put that after goodbye world. And then save and close. Oops. And here's our post. And we're sending it to option equals com hello world, layout equals edit, and ID equals 115. Here's all our data. And the task down at the bottom is hello world save. And the other thing that we wanted was the ordering. And we've set hello world ordering has got 41, and 41 is going to be the ID of that record that we chose in our select box. So this is going to go up to com hello world. It's going to look for, in the controller, hello world controller, a save function. So if we go to our controller here and look for function save, and it's not there, so we go to our JController form and look again for function save. So this is what will be run, and what it does is get the model, get the table, but then coming down here it will call, after it's done all the checks and everything, it will call the model save. So that will go through to our model, and our model is going to be hello world.php, and we'll look for a function save, and this is what it's going to run here. So I'll actually look at it in here. So this is all the stuff that we had before, and here's really just the change. We're going to call the parent save, and after that we're going to rebuild the tree structure. So if we look at save in our parent, go back here, it's JModel admin. So if we go to the admin model, quick function save. So it's going to do a get table, and as we go through, it's going to try and load the existing record and bind the data, check the data, store the data. Right. But the key thing for us is where it calls bind, because the table it's going to find is going to be our table, which is in hello world.php, which now we've set to be JTable nested. So when we create a new instance of this, it's going to create hello world table hello world, which inherits from JTable nested. And it's going to have our bind function, and that's what we've got here. So it's going to come into our bind and it's going to run this code. Now you've got to be a bit careful with bind, because bind is run on the way in, as it were, when you've got data from a form and you're wanting to put it to the database, and it's also run on the way out when you're kind of loading a record from the database into your own data. However, in this case, what we're going to look at, if the parent ID is set, and then if it's an ID which is 0. Now that can only happen when you're going to the database, not from the database, because the ID will always be set when you're going from the database, and this will indicate a new record. And the other thing is is hello world ordering set, and this is what appears when we put something into our form. Here, whenever you select a record which specifies the ordering, in this case 41, and that too doesn't have a database field, so this can only be run on the way towards the database. And what it's doing is it's looking at that, if it's set, and based on what the parent ID is, it's setting up this location. So it's calling this function set location, and this is another of our nested functions. Here it is here. So this is what is used to set the location of the node in the tree object. And in fact, if we look at our code in our nested here, all it's doing is it's setting up a couple of instance variables based on what we specified there. And what happens is that these are actually used when we store the function. It uses these location IDs to actually set where it should be in the tree and set the left and right values accordingly. So that's all done for us. So there is a bit of a description there which you can follow, and you can follow these for the other ones. We've just gone through this one to change the ordering, and it comes into our save, then into our bind function, then back into save, and JModelAdmin calls store, and that's where in JTable nested it uses those location values which were set in the bind function to fix the position in the tree. Now the unfortunate thing is that it fixes the LFT and right values, but it doesn't do the path. And as far as I can see, looking at something like this, the path was a later addition. You don't actually need the path for the tree sort of structure, and it looks as if looking at this, for example, you're setting the left, right and level, and here you've changed that to set the left, right, level and path, as if the path has been something which has been added later. But unfortunately in the in the key store, it doesn't really handle updating the path as well. So that's why in our code we need to do this rebuild afterwards, and that rebuilds the whole table, including the left and the right, but as well as that, the path. Now if you actually go through to something like COM categories and you look at the code for that, and you look at the model code for categories, and here this function save, you'll find that it's doing the same sort of thing as we're doing in our Hello World model save, but it doesn't actually call the parent save. So what it is doing is it's doing all the work itself. So you can see down here load, and then you have things like bind and check and store. So it's kind of doing all of that itself, and then because it's doing it itself, it also has to do all the associations itself. So that would be another way of doing it, and if you really want to, you can have a go at recoding the step and recoding the save so that you follow the paradigm that is set in COM categories and similar in COM menus, where they do all the save, rather than the way it's done here, where it's done kind of using the parent save but putting the location stuff into the bind. I mean, really what we would ideally like is that in our model, which is helloworld.php, in our save, we would really like to do the set location here and then call save. However, that doesn't actually work, because whenever we do the set location and we get the table here and do the set location on it, when we do our parent save here, our parent save is going to be an admin model, and the first thing it does table get table, and what this does, it gets a new instance of the table. So if we were to just in our hello world.php set the location here, it would be on a different instance. So whenever we came here, it wouldn't be using that instance, and what we've done there couldn't be found by this new instance. So hopefully that's understandable. But as I say, if you really want to try and get your head around this, it's worth it having a go at recoding save and putting the code into there, following COM categories rather than putting it into the bind. So that's all the stuff I want to cover on the parent side of things. The front end is a lot easier, and what we're doing is we're just showing in the messages here, you've got, this was all previous, and this is the new bit here. We're just showing the parent so that you can go up and down the tree, and the children. And so in our view, we want to get that data. We want to get the parent item, and then we want to get the children. And when we do get the children, we're using another API within our nested set, which is this get tree method to get a node and all of its child nodes. Now when we're displaying it, we don't want to have the node itself, so after we get it, we do an unset of the first record, which is the record itself. We just want to get the children. And then in our layout file, we just, this is just kind of standard stuff because we're outputting URLs. And here's the stuff for outputting the parent, and this is the stuff for outputting the children. Pretty straightforward. In our Hello World form, we have got the ability to create a new record, and we're just adding this field down at the bottom which specifies the record which we want to have as the parent. So we're reusing the admin field, custom field, which is this one for Hello World Parent, for getting the parent. And we just got to tell the code, tell Joomla on the site side of things to find this in the administrator code. And really the only differences here is that within our save, within our model, I'm not doing a rebuild. So whenever we do add a message here, we'll add one test, select category, good evening. And because I'm not doing a rebuild, we'll find that whenever we go to the table to look at it, here it is down at the bottom, there's no path. So I haven't done a rebuild and I haven't built a path. And if you are recoding save, then you need to do it for both the front end and the back end. To fix this, we could very easily add in our save for the front end here and put that rebuild in. And the category view is pretty straightforward. Okay, that's about it. The only other thing is if you want to have doing some coding, the other thing you could try to do is add a level into the search tools. So somewhere along here, I've got, if I extend this, and install this other code. You can just select the max levels. So if we said 1, then you will see these ones sort of disappear. Okay, that's about it for this step. Hope you find that interesting. Thanks for listening. Bye.